You know, this Memorial Day, while everyone is at a barbecue or hanging out with friends, I thought it would be appropriate to celebrate one of the greatest cinematic war veterans ever created. That's right, I'm talking about none other than John Rambo. For over 30 years, we've seen the character evolve, from a soft-spoken, mentally wounded veteran into a muscle-bound, over-the-top example of 80s action cheese. So naturally, in 2008, when Sylvester Stallone decided to get behind the camera and to bring Rambo back for one less ride, everyone was super excited to see him take on his greatest foe to date, old age.
I've fallen, and I can't get up.
Do you like movies where people get blown to pieces?
Absolutely.
Well, then I've got a movie made just for you. It's time to grab a knife and head upriver, folks, as we take a spoiler-heavy look at Rambo.
Wait a second, you're not Charles Dickens.
I am too.
So, Rambo starts like any great movie, with a walk through the jungle. And it's here that we meet a much older and grizzled John Rambo, who is no longer fighting wars, but who has decided to retire into the countryside of Thailand, where he spends all of his time doing the things that retired people do, like fishing, metalworking, and sweating a lot.
It's so hot.
After deciding to take a stroll through the jungle and catch some deadly snakes, he sets off to the local snake fight club, or whatever is happening here, to sell his latest batch of captured cobras. And it's here that he's approached by some missionaries for help.
Do you have some time to talk? Won't take long, I promise.
You see, they are trying to get into Burma so that they can bring a small village some food, give them medicine, and help with farming. You know, really change people's lives.
That will help change people's lives.
Are you bringing in any weapons?
Of course not.
You're not changing anything.
Not wanting to get involved, Rambo declines to help them, which forces the missionaries to bring out their top negotiator, a hot woman standing in the rain. So the next morning, everything is going smoothly, and the missionaries take the time on the long boat ride to prepare for the next day. This is also when Sarah, the hot, wet lady from earlier, takes a moment to get to know Rambo better.
I got drafted in them.
And you just stayed?
It's complicated.
As this slow boat ride to Burma continues into the night, Rambo and the missionaries come across a group of river pirates who are patrolling the river, demand payment, and when they see Sarah, demand that she come with them. Now, in any other movie, you might say that our characters are in a bad spot, but luckily for them, Rambo is, well, Rambo. And before these evil rape pirates can comprehend what's happening, he's able to take care of them. And by that, I mean kill them brutally and viciously. The next morning, Rambo drops off the missionaries so that they can begin their walk the rest of the way to the village. However, before they part ways, Sarah thanks him for saving their lives the night before, while her boyfriend, on the other hand, decides to be an ungrateful prick.
I have to report this. Taking a life is never right.
But Rambo can't stick around to hear this guy whose blood is literally made of soy complain all day. He has to get back to the pirate ship and dispose of the bodies, a task that must be done quietly as possible so that no one will notice. Finally, the missionaries make it to the village, and everything is going really well. The people are getting dental checkups, the doctors are able to help the sick, and this guy gets to rock out on his tiny guitar. Yep, just a quiet day in Burma, where nothing crazy ever happens until... Suddenly, and without warning, the Burmese army starts to attack the village. They blow people up, mow people down with machine gun fire, cut off people's arms, rape women, and murder children. One dude even picks up a kid and throws him into a fire. And honestly, it's so shockingly violent, I can't even show you what's happening. But this is definitely the part of the movie where you turn to the person sitting next to you and say,
"Oh, shit."
A few days later, the pastor in charge of the missionaries informs Rambo that they've gone missing. And once again, Rambo takes a group of people up the river. But this time, it's a group of mercenaries who are made up of some real unsavory characters. There's Diaz, Injo, Reese, a sniper named Schoolboy, and all of them are being led by Lewis, who is very British.
What the fuck am I doing here?
You sound like you're from London.
Anyway, the next morning, the mercenaries make their way to the village where Sarah Sarah and her group were attacked. After surveying the carnage that has been left over, they decide to travel a bit further into the jungle so that they can determine if the missionaries are alive or dead. Then suddenly, some Burmese soldiers drive up with a truck full of hostages, and after throwing some landmines into a rice paddy, decide to have the hostages race across the paddy to see who survives. Naturally, our team of mercenaries wants to help, but they can't for fear that the sound of gunfire will attract more soldiers. But luckily for them, Rambo doesn't use a gun.
Message for you, son.
As night falls, the mercenaries head to the army camp where the soldiers are relaxing and just doing what any typical soldier would do to blow off steam, like drinking with friends, enjoying a late night show, and studying proctology. With all of the soldiers distracted, Rambo and the team quietly make their way around the camp, freeing the missionaries that are still alive and managing to kill some of the soldiers along the way. Cut to the next morning, and the Burmese army has discovered that the missionaries are gone and that their fellow soldiers are dead. So they all quickly race into the jungle to find the missionaries and kill whoever is responsible. Realizing that the army is tracking them with dogs, Rambo decides to draw them away by splitting up from the rest, and by doing so, he's able to lure them to a decades-old unexploded bomb where Rambo has made a trap. As Schoolboy and Sarah begin to make their way to the boat, they notice that something isn't right, and after taking a closer look, they realize that the army troops have managed to capture the mercenaries and the surviving missionaries. But because they're outnumbered, there's nothing that they can do to help, and at this point, all seems lost. And it's here that we all bear witness to the greatest moment ever captured in cinematic history. Rambo sneaks behind a soldier, cuts off his head, shoots another guy at point-blank range, and then proceeds to kill everyone. And by everyone, I mean everyone! Legs are getting blown off, heads are exploding, people are being ripped in half.
Dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria.
Again, I can't really show you all that's happening because YouTube would almost certainly flag this video. But believe me when I say that behind this black bar is one of the most brutal, over-the-top, and oddly cathartic moments that you'll ever see in a movie. It's just a full 6 minutes of people getting turned into hamburger meat by this massive gun.
If you squeeze me, I make bad people go away.
Eventually, Rambo does run out of ammo. Burmese rebels show up to stop the rest of the army, and the day is saved. And when it's all said and done, the movie we end up with is competently made and has some very engaging action sequences. But that's really all there is to say about it. When I say it's competently made, I mean just that. It's fine. On a production level, it checks all of the boxes that it needs to. This movie was directed by Sylvester Stallone, his 7th feature at the time of its release, so by this time in his career, he knows how to get the job done. Sadly, however, there's nothing that really makes this movie stand out. Well, there is this. But most of the time, the movie has a very flat look to it, and there's nothing that really makes it visually interesting, which is unfortunate because Stallone has made pretty good movies in the past, like Rocky II and Rocky III. If this was a class project, you'd probably want to give him a passing grade, but not much more than that. As far as the acting goes, there really isn't much to say. You either get performances that are way over the top,
What the fuck am I doing here?
or that fall completely flat.
I was told it might be possible to rent your boat. We'd like to do that. Is that possible?
The best actor by far, I would say anyway, is Julie Benz, who plays Sarah. Most of you probably know her as Rita from the TV show Dexter, but even she doesn't have much to do in the movie other than just look scared all the time. And as far as the script goes, there isn't too much to it. It's a very straightforward story, a simple 3-act structure, an in-and-out type of movie, which is fine, especially for a movie like this, which is trying to be a callback to the 80s action movies. However, I do think this movie misses an opportunity to continue the Rambo tradition of touching on post-war issues for veterans. In fact, a big reason why the movie First Blood is so different from the book is because Sly Stallone wanted to shine a light on the struggles of Vietnam vets returning to society.
The changing of it from Rambo murdering the posse to wounding the posse was Stallone's idea.
I don't want everyone who was a Vietnam vet to see this film and realize, oh, so there's no hope for me at all. Because at that time, they were losing 20,000 vets to suicide a month. that I don't want to be part of that.
And with every subsequent Rambo movie, these issues have been addressed as well. In part 2, it was about the world moving on from Vietnam and leaving the veterans behind, both literally and metaphorically. And in part 3, it was, albeit briefly, about veterans being able to forgive themselves. By the time this movie was released, a whole new generation had been introduced to war, one that, looking back now, resembled Vietnam in a lot of ways. So, having the Rambo character once again shine a light on these topics for a new generation of veterans would not only add a bit of needed gravity to balance out the rest of the movie, but also remind the public that these are things that veterans of all wars deal with, not just wars of the past, something that we in the US at least seem to forget, no matter how many USA chants we partake in or patriotic jet flybys we see. And I understand if this seems like a strange point to make about a movie that obviously doesn't take itself too seriously. I just think it would have been a nice way to add a bit more weight to the movie. So, at the end of the day, would I recommend this movie? You bet. In fact, at just 90 minutes long, it's the perfect movie to have people over for your annual movie marathon. You can find it on HBO Max and just about any other streaming service. And with the right group of friends and the right kind of cold drinks, I think everyone will have a great time.